So tonight we will discuss over the next hour a creative and community-rooted solution to the housing crisis called Yes in God's Backyard, or YIGBY. I think by now all of us are very aware that housing affordability has become one of the defining challenges facing Phoenix and communities across Arizona. Whether you're a teacher, a nurse, a first responder, a young family, or someone hoping to age in place, finding a home that fits your budget has become increasingly difficult, if not impossible. But it wasn't always like this. Just a decade ago, Arizona was an affordable housing state with a low cost of living. Over the past several years, fueled by the pandemic migration, we experienced some of the fastest increase in housing costs in the country, and our rents and home prices have nearly doubled. While we've made progress in increasing production, we still remain tens of thousands of homes short of what our growing population needs. And when supply can't keep up with demand, families feel it with higher rents, higher home prices, and much longer commutes. The good news is that there isn't just one solution to addressing this. It means that there are many opportunities for people to be a part of the answer. We need builders and developers who can deliver housing at different price points, which you'll hear from tonight. We need policymakers willing to remove unnecessary barriers and modernize outdated regulations. And we'll need community organizations, neighbors, and faith groups willing to imagine how underutilized land can serve people in brand new ways. And that's what brings us to tonight's conversation. The idea behind YIGBY is actually quite simple. Across the country, churches, synagogues, mosques, and other faith institutions own land that sits partially unused, often in neighborhoods where people desperately need affordable housing. YIGBY asks a simple question. What if that land could become part of the solution? It's a question that faith organizations in Arizona have been asking as they look for ways to live out their missions and help families increasingly strained by rising housing costs. In 2023, California passed legislation allowing qualifying religious institutions and nonprofit colleges to build 100% affordable housing on their property through a streamlined approval process. That very same year, once we learned of it, Arizona introduced YIGBY legislation in the legislature. It received bipartisan support, but ultimately did not advance. We tried again the following year, policy I was honored to sponsor. And while that effort also fell short, one thing I've learned is that building good policy starts with building strong coalitions and changing the conversation. What I love most about this idea with YIGBY is that it isn't just about housing policy. It's about community. It's about faith organizations asking how they can use their resources they already have to serve their neighbors. And it's a reminder that solving our housing crisis will take partnerships between people who don't always agree on everything else, but who do agree that everyone deserves a safe, affordable place to call home. I'm excited to hear from today's panel about what's working, what challenges remain, and what we can learn from communities that are already putting these ideas into practice. So let's get started. I'm going to introduce our panelists first. We have Christopher Ortega. He is a managing partner at GHK Properties and developed the Desert Dove Apartments, a Yes in God's Backyard project in Tucson, Arizona. We have Oliver Davey, a senior project manager for LGS Global Property. He oversees the planning, development, and construction of community-focused housing projects, including faith-based affordable housing initiatives designed to serve vulnerable populations. And we have John Weiss, who's a retired 40-year career in commercial real estate. And since retirement, John has been involved with a variety of issues impacting those in need, and we'll hear about some of those tonight. So first, to kick it off, Chris, I'd love to pass it over to you. Congratulations on Desert Dove Apartments. You successfully opened recently in Tucson.
Yes.
It was a wonderful project that I believe epitomizes the partnership and values of providing an affordable place for people to call home right there on church properties in the city centers. So could you please tell us a little bit about Desert Dove Apartments? How did that idea come about? What regulatory barriers did you face? And what financial barriers did you have to overcome?
Yes, absolutely. So first off, thank you for Urban Phoenix Project and Valley Urban Action Alliance, and of course, Representative Lingori for your time and invite today about talking about Desert Dove Apartments. My partners and I have been working with nonprofits and churches for almost 10 years. My partner was a crucial advocate for SB4, the California bill that passed and was their YIGB, which allowed the by right zoning policy for churches to be able to build on their property. That organization is making housing and community happen. I believe now it's called Congregational Land Partners. So that's how really the inception of Desert Dove has come along. So it was word of mouth through that organization that connected us with Desert Dove Church in Tucson in the neighborhood of Midvale. We were able to meet with Pastor Jay, and at the time it was Pastor Michael. They had unutilized land, roughly about less than 4 acres. The church itself has been in the community. I believe the buildings were built late 70s, early 80s, serving the community. And up until now, the congregation hasn't grown, still serving the community, and I'll get to that in the specifics, but their phase 2, 3, and 4 didn't come to fruition, but the will to serve the community was just as grand. So the introduction was, what do you think about affordable housing? And the church was ecstatic, continuing their mission within their community. So when we were after the introduction and having that relationship, we were able to build Desert Dove Apartments, which includes 64 units, 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, and a community room. And then one manager room, of course, for that. It's a 2-story walk up and 4 separate buildings within the community. So it really looks like almost a town because it's right next to the church. So the church wasn't able, the church didn't they didn't tear down any church buildings, and they are there serving. So they have been such a great partner and community partner, really raising the residents. And I guess the full story is the church itself has 3 church members that are residents at Desert Dove. So it really does come full circle because they did qualify. Of course, we aimed for our targeted AMI that we submitted for. So that in itself is go to church, you live there, and you serve the community all within a walking distance. And I think that's great. Like days like today when it's 113 degrees and you don't have to continue your community service walking across town or traveling across town. But with that, with the success story of having a Desert Dove being built, there were some barriers. Now, working with people of faith, the path seems a little smoother. So that's very helpful. But again, faith communities are not structured like private entities. So when you're introducing development, private lawyer talk, legal descriptions, all this other stuff getting thrown and saying to a church, the communication has to be strong, and the understanding of the mission. So we have a mission on our NGHK is to provide housing for those in need with our skill set going forward. My partners and I have family members that have benefited from some subsidized type of housing. So we understand those. So when we do create those communities, we want to picture us or any one of our family members to have that dignity, because that's what it's coming back to, some sort of dignity of housing that is respectful. And why can't it be nice? And also right next to churches, I don't think you find a better neighbor than a church and then the service that is provided. So dealing with 2 entities that are mission aligned, but structure of language of private and nonprofit going forward to do one mission. So I would say that communication is strong. I wouldn't call it a barrier because we did break through on both ends. We learned from each other going through because every project's different. Because every church has its own goals and alignment of what they want to do within the community. And one thing that we were able to do was they had their own pantry or sorry, they had their own food distribution, but it was off-site. So it was across the street, and I don't know, it was a couple miles away, and they were using that area to distribute food um, for those in need. So we collaboratively collaborated with them and created a pantry on site on our site so they can do the food distribution. I don't know if they're going to keep the other one. I was like, you can do both. I mean, we're not telling you different, but the food pantry is on site, and it's not just for our residents benefiting from that. It's continuing to service the neighborhood. We just thought it would be a great idea for the church not to be able to travel again and do local community service. So the other barriers that or things that came about is church leadership and church leadership change. They were in the process of one pastor, and then who was on retirement, and then he went on retirement, and we got another one, and now those views and certain things are important to certain pastors. So just on a design change, there was a request. They had a labyrinth and also a memorial site that they had for past church members, and we were asked, hey, can we use this land? And they say yes. What about this? And at that time, that pastor says, that's fine. We'll just do we can move the site. We can do something with that. And with the new pastor that came in, kind of said, you know what, we really want to keep that. So we said yes, and we did that. But that is a design change, and I don't, churches don't understand that, and it's not on them that these type of changes are a little bit take time, and these so that's kind of the communication, but we're willing to, like I said, we're both mission oriented and going forward. So that's kind of I wouldn't call it a barrier, but these things just change. But on the financial question that you were asking, this is a 9% LIHTC deal, and we know that these low-income housing tax credits, 9% are highly competitive. I think it's about the ratio of 1 to 4 shot that you will receive one when applied, including all the work that you have been the church or the developer has been going through for the past, I'd say no less than a year of putting this project together. So the financing barrel it's competitive, and um, there's a risk that it may not happen. The first resource that we did get is from the city of Tucson. That was our first our resource, and then we were able to get the 9% tax credit, and then we applied for another grant, I believe, with Pima County. So it really took the whole state to really come together. But the other thing I wanted to say is on that, it's about timing. Um, this church at that time, and this was an allocation that we received, I believe, in 2023, was in the qualified census tract. And I don't want to lose anybody too much when I start talking about very specifics, but HUD releases certain areas that qualify for certain funding that make these things pencil and all the resources. So let me just stay on board that all resources are needed to build affordable housing. Maybe not all at once, but all of them are needed, whether it's from public or private, um, uh, things like that. So in 2023, if this thing didn't go uh, as as planned, as much as planned, 2025, it wouldn't have happened because the QCT changed, the funding changed, the opportunity changed, and I believe there's a forward allocation, which means the state was able to reward more at that year and then scaled back, I believe, in 24 and 25. So it's really about timing, and churches
Yeah.
to understand that uh, uh, what is good now may not be good later, and it's really hard to see 40 great applications a year and have only 9, I think it was 9 this year, projects go forward. And some of those really good projects, it's about timing and could never happen, because of the timing and the resources. So those are the financial barriers that I believe every developer would go forward. But what the good thing is, mission aligned is with these resources that we're able to get from the city, county, and state.
Mhm.
And being in the QCT, we paid a fair market value for the church land because they were wanting to their expand the resources, hire a new pastor because they needed to do that, and really stay in the community and uplift other resources. They've been great. They've already done an Easter egg hunt. They've already done. They gave out bags to our new uh, residents when they moved in. Cleaning supplies. I think there were blankets or something like that also in that. So those are the main barriers of just going through because it's not as much as we like to plan, there's deviation, but you have to have strong communication on both ends. Um, uh, I believe to make a village, takes a village to build one. So
I think that's a great point to make. And, for those in the audience listening in, what makes these projects, the timing for every project, time is money, and any delay costs, in excess of tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars. With these affordable housing projects, what Chris mentioned with the timing and the availability of the LIHTC, the low income housing tax credits, it's the only way that they're able to charge below market rents. And so you will oftentimes, and I'm glad that you highlighted it, they have to find so many different funding sources if they're going to, charge below market to keep it affordable. So it does take partnerships at the city, the county, the state, and the nonprofit area to make these projects pencil out. So I'm really appreciate you touching on all that, because communication, I think, might be overlooked in this process. And I'm glad you brought it up. Now, switching gears to Oliver, let's talk a little bit about the Caleb Center. So it is a nonprofit community development organization in Maryville
Yes.
that spent years partnering with families and neighbors to strengthen the community through services, support, and now affordable housing. Can
Mhm.
you tell us a little bit about the Caleb Center work, and what practical things do people need to consider before launching into an effort to build housing on church property? And how do they navigate the process if they're going to consider it?
Wow. Okay. First of all, I want to thank you guys for allowing us this opportunity to share our experiences on the project thus far, and I want to also thank all the panelists for taking time out to share because it's vastly needed. But the Caleb Center and of course John, I know he will speak more to it and about it because the Caleb Center was his idea. The Caleb Center was his idea, and John brought me in uh, as the builder to kind of bring this vision alive. And so I would definitely first want to say that that the project is a part of my calling. So I'm just honored to be a part of it from the building aspect. But when building on church land, I think is three main things that you should look out for. And one of them is being practical. You got to be practical and know your zoning and your code path. That's very important. And I'm gonna get into that in a minute. Second, your team and procurement strategy is very important. And third, your programming vision, because what you plan to offer should shape what you build. So all three of these things is very important in the early stages. And so these are some of the lessons that we learned. Of course, this is our first go at it. So I think we've done well, but there were some things that we learned along the way, and of course that's what we're here for, is to share these things. So number one is knowing your zoning, land use path, and the code path before you price the job. Um, I don't think that you should start or assume that this is just going to be a simple project. I think you need to start by understanding the property zoning, whether it be proposed, the land use is allowed. You need to know if you need a permit, a variance, what building code path the project will fall under. In Phoenix, zoning and development reviews can require permit use variances and other approvals depending on your site use. So those conversations need to happen early. The second part of that is code classification. A lot of people casually assume that commercial versus residential, but the real cost driver is usually a combination of land use, occupancy, construction type, fire code, and utility requirements. Phoenix uses an adopted building and fire code to determine these requirements, and the construction type rules are based on whether the structure is combustible or non-combustible and what fire resistance is required. That is what, that is what can definitely drive up the price. So at the Caleb Center, we're building a non-combustible 12 dwelling units for individuals that are one, have justice involved backgrounds and are reintegrating into society, and two, individuals that may be getting out of an inpatient rehabilitation situation and they're are in need of housing. So on the church property right now, we're building non-combustible, and knowing that now, that does determine and drive the price up. And so knowing the zoning is very important. Um, in Phoenix, another thing that we experienced and ran into is the sprinkler requirement, and many of us assume that that just getting approved for residential slash commercial, you may or may not need it, but actually it just depends on where you're at and the city requirements, because residential could require this too, as well as a commercial site, and those costs can really drive up the cost of construction. So knowing that in advance is very important.
And
Uh,
Oliver,
my-
can I ask you a quick question on that
Absolutely.
thread too? Because tying this into Yigby, a lot of things that you've just mentioned,
Mhm.
how knowing the zoning process, knowing how to work through the system, knowing there are lots of stacked and layered
Mhm.
requirements, and if you don't follow one, you could go back to the start. What does, if there's anything particular you could highlight from your perspective, if a church is able and can, by right build certain types of housing, affordable housing on their property, how does that help you bypass some of these either lower these costs or bypass that? Have you seen that in action with the work that you're doing of, if we could have churches have by right zoning to build housing, what does that mean for you, the builder? Like, how does that expedite the process or lead to decreased costs?
Right. Well, I mean, I think it's been said already, but of course, time is money. So to lessen the time that we need in order to get certain things passed, building permits, certain inspections, we may be able to forego certain inspections and things of that nature, just based off of what we are allowed to do and how well we plan from the beginning. Well, and that includes building materials. There's different types of building materials that may be permitted. That in the beginning stages, if you're able to recognize this, again, you may be able to bypass some things. Right now, believe it or not, foam is a very viable source to build shelters out of. I wasn't a firm believer of that until I built a few projects out of that material. So it was not only was it cost effective, but it's energy efficient as well. Of course, the traditional stick build versus a more commercial build where we're using steel framing. Those things can drive up costs. And so just knowing that up front, it can save you a lot of time and of course a lot of money.
Yep. And
Yeah.
I think that Arizona is getting creative in how we build and exploring new things, right here in our state, from tiny homes
Yeah,
to building on church property to exploring new materials too. Uh,
absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
thank you. Um, John, over to you. You've had an extensive career in commercial real estate, and since retiring, you have not ceded into the background. You have been in the forefront, as we mentioned, working with the Caleb Center. I'd love to hear a little bit about your work there. And then if you could tell us about the project at Maryvale Church of the Nazarene and how did that idea come about?
Yes. As you mentioned, I had been involved in commercial real estate for a number of years and had been involved in, I had quite a bit of project experience over the years. Once I retired, I got on the board of the Arizona Justice Center, which is a wonderful small agency in Glendale, Arizona, which provides services to those in need. And I got more personal experience with with homeless people. And I also noticed that many of the projects that people were advocating for, those agencies and people trying to get facilities up, were snagged somewhere in the development process. And so I started to raise my hand at various meetings and said, look, if anybody needs some help, let me know. I might be able to help you. So at one of these meetings, at one of the Arizona Justice Center meetings, Reverend Fleming, Pastor Dan Fleming, put his card down in front of me and said, I've got some land behind my church and I've had a vision of doing something with it. Could you please give me a call? So I followed up on that. And just from my real estate background, I recognized it was a very good site for development, and it's in a part of town which really needs affordable housing. There were characteristics of the site that were very interesting. For example, a bus line in front and service agencies up and down the street, et cetera, et cetera. So started digging into it. And Sarah, you mentioned the issue of by right zoning. And one of the things that we discovered in our due diligence process that really encouraged us to go forward was that in Phoenix, the zoning code allows for church properties to build something that is termed a pocket shelter on their property by right. And you can house up to 12 non-related individuals plus children without any public process. And if you go through a use permit process, you can go up to 24, yes, up to 24 people. And so we thought that, well, gee whiz, if we don't have to go through zoning, we should have about 10 of these projects up in the next couple of years. But we were to learn a few lessons. And what the Caleb Center itself is what we term a low-cost pocket shelter community. As Oliver mentioned, it's behind the Maryvale Church of the Nazarene, 51st Avenue in Osborne. And it's really comprised of a combination of new construction, 12 units, 11 of which are bedroom units and then a kitchen, as well as remodeled restrooms that were existing on the church and a remodeled classroom that we'll use. One of the advantages that we have experienced using church property is that there are a number of the facilities that exist there that we don't have to build and pay for. In our case, we're on a ground lease parcel. Our relationship with the church land is via ground lease, so we don't have to buy any land, did not have to buy land. There's a big wall around the church, which would be required that we didn't have to build. We don't have to build parking, et cetera, et cetera. So we've had a number of advantages utilizing these existing facilities. And what our church will be serving, as Oliver mentioned, would be single men who are coming out of programs and that they need a place to stay. You know, if they've been at Mercy Center of Arizona or they've been at the Phoenix Rescue Mission for 18 months, they're now clean and sober and employed. But you can't just expect them to go sit by themselves in an apartment somewhere and not be very tempted to go back to where they started from. In addition to that, we noticed that in the case of Phoenix Rescue Mission, for example, they have a capacity problem. They have people that come to their program that can't find a place to live. And so now they don't move out of Phoenix Rescue Mission, which then blocks the next person from coming into the program. So we were trying to help out with that particular issue. And we were able, and I know real estate pretty well, but I certainly don't know how to deal with people of this population. And I scratched my head as to how this happened, but we were able to attract several fairly highly qualified people, or actually several very highly qualified people to serve on our little group. We're all volunteers. We really don't have an organization, but Bill Moreland, who's current chairman of CAS, has participated with us for a long time. Pamela Morrison, who's the CEO of Mercy Center of Arizona, is within our group. Dave Hepburn, who was formerly the housing director for UMOM, has made big contributions to our efforts. And then the remaining two are Ken Viggers, who's a local banker and businessman, and myself. So, but also with strong participation by Pastor Fleming. And so, as Christopher had mentioned earlier, it's really important to have a close relationship with the church and with the church hierarchy, not only the local pastor, but also he needs to be backed up by his hierarchy as well as his congregation. So as to the regulatory issues, the biggest one that we were trying to dodge and were successful in dodging because it would have been a long time and a lot of money to accomplish is zoning. And in our case, we didn't have to go through zoning. But we had lengthy, and I mean very lengthy conversations. Our architect, Paul Ladensack of CCBG, spent a lot of time at the city trying to sort through building code issues, and many months, really. And eventually we got that worked out to a large extent. However, we're still dealing with regulatory issues. And as Oliver had mentioned, one of the big ones is the fire suppression issue. And we've had others. Just as an example, our total project is going to be maybe $650,000 for this project. And the city was going to require us to put in a $300,000 fire lane. So completely disproportionate to the size of the project. So that issue, each of these takes months to resolve. We've been working on this for 4 years. As to finance, we really were unsuccessful in appealing to the normal sources of funding for this type of a project. We had some encouragement. People were interested in the project, but I think that the fact that we were pioneering, it's not been done before, was discouraging for them. There's strong competition for the dollars. And also, to be honest, we just didn't have the time to go through the process more than twice. We applied twice. We have a very small group. We were fully engaged. Most of the people participating have full-time jobs they're dealing with. I have a little bit more time, but I'm not very sophisticated, so it took me a lot of time to fill out these applications. And so eventually, and also the faith-based, we will be running a faith-based program at this facility, and that created limitations. We were able to find some success with private donors, and that's how we got it done, through private donations. And basically, that's all I can tell you at this point. I think there was a point, though, Sarah, that you made earlier that I wanted to reinforce. Well, I'm going to let you ask your question about what impact do I think that this should have. The answer I was about to give you was to a question which you haven't yet asked.
Okay. Well, I cannot wait to hear that answer. But I think between, what we've heard from each of you, I hope drives home the work that the heart of what YIGB is trying to do. And it is the faith communities stepping up, but then there's also the barriers that are in place for any, real estate project that is trying to get done, which is, regulations, permits, approvals, and then just the high cost to build right now and to finance. And again, when building affordable housing, you don't have always the traditional sources of financing you can get. So it is, working in housing is definitely a calling. I think we see that and we hear that from the three of you today. It is not glamorous. I know how hard it is. I know how hard Chris worked to get that project to pencil out. And at the end of the day, it is something to celebrate because it is a beautiful project that is a win for everyone. It is a win for the church that now has, their property being utilized and community engaged in those spaces, and maybe some financial benefits as, some of these institutions are losing membership and their financial base. But it's also beautiful in the ability to, churches are everywhere, across our state and these communities where people want and should be able to live. So we can put people in affordable housing in the city. And it's just a beautiful blending of those that have a calling in housing to help serve the community, the faith institutions serving the community. And then the ultimate benefit is the people that we get to call neighbors and that get to have a safe and affordable place to call home. And what YIGB is trying to do is to reduce some of these barriers financially or otherwise, to say, if you're building on this church property, you can skip these 3 approval processes, and that cuts costs and that cuts time, and that helps put some more certainty in the project for you all. So as we, I love to go back, and Chris, I'll kick it back off to you. So if we get this right, and we'll keep pushing for YIGB. As I mentioned, Arizona's worked on it the past 2 years, and we're not alone. I think there's been about 6 or 7 other states that have enacted versions of YIGB, and about the same amount of cities that have taken this upon themselves to put YIGB ordinances in place. But what would YIGB mean at scale for Arizona's communities? And what will it take from both the public and policymakers to make that vision a reality?
Wow. Great question.
Answer it here all.
Yeah, a great question. So what YIGB would mean is enhancement of community and resources. Church is already part of some sort of neighborhood or some sort of thoroughfare. There's already traffic of people that care about that community. Using YIGB to the scale of affordable housing or services on their property will only enhance the community itself. It really reminds me, going through Desert Dove, of some sort of, we're in the West, we're in the Wild West out here. So it was settlement. There was churches or resources, churches, school, and places to live. And it really comes down to those basics. We're not rewriting anything that hasn't been done, that people have been in need. We are in financial crisis of people affording, but we're not rewriting any books of those those top things. So what it would mean is, again, just enhancement of resources, allowing or utilizing land that's just not being utilized or resources not being utilized. And I think it would be a great opportunity not only for the future residents or future resource center, but for people around. And I think that's what people have to see, or story that has to be told. Okay, you said policymakers. What was the other?
There's a takeaway, yeah, for
Yeah.
the audience. What can they know or do, and then what should policymakers be doing to help push this? How can the public and policy blend together for this to make
You
it
know,
happen?
and I think we're doing it today, and I think we're talking about it. We're getting the information out there. I think Desert Dove itself inside Arizona is not we're not talking about a theoretical thing anymore. We're not talking about how does it look on paper. We're seeing it actually in real time and how it affects and how it is able to get done. But there are other hurdles because not all land is the same, not all location is the same. So for a policymaker on that side, I think we just have to be, this is me, a little bit of a truist. Who are we affecting? Who are we helping? And how does this affect the uplift of the church going forward? And I think if you get that narrative or that correct in writing, I think it's going to resonate on all levels. The other thing of, we'll just talk about the other side, and I'm sorry to bring them up, but NIMBYism. When someone says, "Hey, you want to bring a few friends over," who are they and how many are coming over, right? And I think that's a good question. Those are the questions that's being asked by other neighbors. So back to the community is. I haven't seen too much of "I don't want to help people out there" conversations. It's when you start talking about location, and I think just the continued communication and representation of, again, being a truist to there's already a church there. There's already people throughout the week. They want to enhance their resources, and utilizing those resources will benefit greater. Like, who's influencing who on this? How are we influencing each other to create this community that's going to really benefit from them?
Beautiful. Thank you, Chris. Oliver, to you, what does YIGBY mean for Arizona, and anything you want to leave with the public or for policymakers?
Absolutely. What does it mean for Arizona? First of all, again, I want to thank John and his tremendous team for allowing LGS Global Property the opportunity to build these pocket shelters. Why? One of the main reasons why for me is personally is that LGS Global Property is a 100% second chance employer. So what does that mean for Arizonans? That means that the state of Arizona is giving these individuals a second chance. They're not being overlooked, and they're able to work on these projects with dignity and be a part of building housing for their own community in a dignified manner. I feel like it promotes social responsibility. For us all, and the social impact is far reaching in terms of not just like parents kind of like getting their life on track, but also the impact that it has when mom and dad gets their life on track, then the kids get their life on track and they had their parents in their life. And I see this firsthand every day. So I know the impact that it has and how it's ongoing. So it's not just on the surface. It really runs deep. And so I'm proud to be a part of that. And to the policymakers, I would say, just stay open-minded and be willing to really go out and visit sites and really meet the people that's involved from the forward thinkers that start these projects and develop them to the individual workers and kind of realize the impact because financially it is a great gain. You have a lot of open space. You have a lot of areas that are not being utilized. not just church properties, but just period. And being able to utilize this space, it's tax revenue as well. These individuals now are working, and they're contributing, and that means tax dollars, and not just on property, but in economically in buying. So for policymakers, again, it is far-reaching. So all these things I feel like we need to look at this, when we're writing and making policy, all the social good and financial good that it does.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think you hit every facet. And I'll just, for those in the crowd, I can say firsthand, seeing these projects, changed me. And I have seen it change my colleagues in the legislature. I have seen it change people when they go and see and talk to a project. And so we try to do that as much as possible. We were out at Desert Dove when it opened. And I would encourage anyone in the audience, if you haven't gone to see one of these projects, here's your opportunity to go and go see it for yourself, because it's everything Oliver, just described. And John, I know you've been patiently waiting, so we'll pass it on to you now.
Well, I think that, well, first of all, it's a thrill. Oliver's guys are out there, and I'm on the job quite a bit, and I've had I'd say 4 or 5 of these guys come up and say, "Boy, am I glad to be, thank you so much for the opportunity to work on this project. It's exciting to me," and it's a healing thing for them, and it's a healing. And I think that what these projects do is they help heal the community, and they provide the opportunity for people who otherwise are on the sideline, members of a church. It provides the opportunity for them to step up to the plate and help, which many people want to do. They just don't know how to do it. And it also, I think, enhances the church's service to the community. In the case of Maryvale Church of the Nazarene, the fact that they have been out there serving people for almost 70 years reduces the NIMBY reaction that you would find in most cases. People trust Maryvale Church of the Nazarene. They're out in the neighborhood helping clean up people's yards and painting fences and all that and they've been doing that for years. And so this enhances that relationship. I think it helps to heal the community. It helps to reinforce the mission of the church. It's I think, going to be very, very good for Maryvale Church of the Nazarene. And we need to do it. We need to all, this is an all hands on deck issue. And we cannot continue along this path that we're on now. And so I think that these projects, will assist in that regard. As far as what the policies makers can do, one of the things that we're going to do after we get a few minutes and the project's finished, is we've talked about doing an after action report. In other words, we're going to get our architect together with Oliver and our committee, and we're going to try to write down all of the things that we could have, that had they happened, would have allowed us to shorten our project from 4 or 5 years to a year and a half, or 6 months. And
I'm sure Chris can help
that's certainly going to involve some policy issues. And so we're going to work on that. We've agreed to work on that once we're done. But one of the more obvious things that could be done immediately without changing much would be to have the city say, look, if a project of this description comes to our attention, let's put them at the front of the line.
Absolutely.
Anything happens to us, if we have to go to the city to ask a question or to get something resolved, it can be, or to appeal something, it's 6 months easily. And so now we're sitting there waiting. and not knowing what the answer is going to be. So we need to have the city say, look, if you're a church of this description, you go to the front of the line, and everyone else can, because other people they don't have the financial issues that we have. They
Right.
don't have they're more, and we are oftentimes sort of amateur developers. We're not big, well-financed developers who can stand, who have the staff and resources to withstand changes and the political relationships. If the churches are going to be involved, they're going to be involved at a just above an amateur level, probably. So they need help. They need to be coached, much of which Oliver addressed. And so those are kind of general thoughts about what could be done.
Yeah, and I think I have two questions from the chat I'd like to throw out in our final 5 minutes. But I think you kind of answered a little bit of this already in your answer. So let me just throw out these two questions and anyone can jump in. So what's stopping more places of worship from taking part in projects like Yigby? And does rezoning kill projects more often than not? So two totally different questions, but if anyone wants to answer those, I think.
I would like to answer the first one.
Yep.
And that is our project in Phoenix. No one knew that this provision, or very few people knew that this provision existed within the zoning code. And when we showed up with our project, the city did not know that this provision existed within their code. And so it's not very well known. And it's also a big because it's an unknown, the few other churches we've talked about it's a risk proposition. And can we really handle this? And then it's a debate within the congregation. And so one of the things we want to do is to provide a little bit of a model so that churches can come visit our project and see what it involves, and so it becomes less scary. And as a matter of fact, if anybody wants to come, anyone within our audience or anyone would like to come tour Caleb Center, we would be happy to arrange for tours.
And very
if you
quickly,
want to see something under construction.
Yeah, I would love if people got out there. And does rezoning kill more projects often than not? And I love this question because it again is back to the heart of what Yigby is if we can eliminate some of those cumbersome and unnecessary zoning procedures, then are we able to get more projects like this online? So last question to the group: does rezoning kill projects more often than not in your experience?
Well, once again, I'll try to be short and allow the other panelists to comment, but I would say in all capital letters, yes, because it's scary. Rezoning is scary. It makes the target, you become a target. It costs you, without too much exaggeration, $100,000 in a year and a half of effort or whatever. I mean, it's a very big issue to have to rezone a property, particularly for, depending upon the congregation or what is your target audience as your housing development. In our case, I think it would have been a big inhibition for us to proceed. In fact,
Chris,
the fact that we didn't have to go through zoning was a big encouragement for us to proceed.
The heart of Yigby. There it is. Chris, you agree? Disagree?
Yeah, all capital letters. Yes.
Yes.
Zoning is the heart of a Yigby bill for a legislature to get that done. Rezoning. Churches we'll just say a church that isn't in the right zoning, isn't in a certain area that has qualified for federal funding. We'll just say it, they're on the really bottom of the list of what we refer as competitive funding, which is everything you have to apply for, you have to win. So it's, a rezoning adds time and money, just like John said. It's time and money. And if it's not in that sweet spot of when these funds are available, as we saw with the what was it, the state trust fund? Is that what I'm saying correctly? The
There
ARPA
has.
funds? Well, the ARPA funds that
Oh,
were there.
mhm.
Just, the what does come every, not too often, but if churches aren't prepared and have those things lined up, it's a hard path, harder path, but not impossible.
Not impossible, as
Not
you
impossible.
all proved and are proving. And I hope that the message takeaway from everyone here tonight is that this is one solution. It is not the only solution, but it's a great solution. And it really aligns community and the public and policymakers in order to say, yes, we are going to do this. Yes, in God's backyard is important. And so I want to thank you all for being here, Chris and John and Oliver, sharing your expertise. I hope everyone can connect offline if they want to come visit your projects. And thank you to all the attendees and Valley Urban Action Alliance for hosting this, and more to come on the housing front from this organization. But thank you all for being here and thank you all for participating. All
Thank you so much. Thank you.
right, wonderful. Have a good night, everyone.
Right.
You.
Thank you.
I hate saying goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, we'll connect.